Once you've thought about what the book has to say, it's time to make a real-world connection to that book. I'd like you to find at least one outside source that you can use that will supplement what you have to say, again, that relates that book to real life. You know when you're writing that you're going to be switching from talking about a work of fiction to something real world, and you need to set your reader up for that change. So when you move from one section to the next, it's going to be useful to put a transition there. Now remember, transitions are like little guideposts that you put in your writing that say, hey, keep going, what's coming up is more of the same, or hey, whoa, something totally different is coming up here. They kind of prep the reader or guide the reader along so they can see how your ideas logically relate. In this case, I'm switching from a fictional text, and I want to talk about the real world medicine here, or what the research shows about social connection. So perhaps my transition will be something like this. Although 1984 is a work of fiction, actual medical data or medical research strongly supports the need or the influence of social connections on health. I'll put how it strongly supports the need for strong social connections. Again, I can wordsmith this later, but I need to know the point that I'm trying to make here. I need to know the target I want to make. Now, I've looked at several articles, and there are so many things online that talk about how having friends and not being lonely, having a good community makes you healthier, and not having those things make you unhealthier. So I've gone through and I've put some little notes from two sources that I've looked at. So one example I want to give of, I was thinking, what would they have known back in 1949, or what would medical science have said about loneliness, aside from what we sort of know by common sense? And my guess would be that conventional wisdom of the time would have said that if you need to be healthy, you need to eat right, exercise, and get sleep, which is what we say today too. But an early example that from 1961 shows that people were really shocked when they found that there's a group of people who didn't eat right. They eat really poorly, and yet they had heart attack rates that were half the national average because they had just the strong community and stuff that went with it. So I've gone through and I've taken some notes about this example, and I've tagged these notes with the author of the source, and I'm just using MLA here, so I'm putting just the author and not the date. But if you do APA, remember you want to put the year there as well. And then I've got another source because I wanted to look at some stuff that was more recent. So I found a source that reviewed a lot of the literature, and ideally I would go in and click on each of those studies, but I think the review sort of served my purposes. And I've got the information there. I'm trying to put it in my own words. I don't want to accidentally plagiarize by typing it and then thinking later on when I go to write that I wrote that really nice stuff. If I want to quote anything, I'm going to copy it directly, make sure I put it in quotation marks, and of course I'm going to tag the information with a citation. So in this case I put the last name here, which is Novotny, assuming I'm saying that right. Okay, and as soon as I realize I'm going to use the source, I need to go and make that reference list a works cited entry. If you're going to use MLA format, which is fine with me, Modern Language Association format, this page at the end will be called the Works Cited page. If you're going to use APA format, it'll be called the References list. So we'll just say References. Either way is fine. Either way, the sources are going to be arranged alphabetically, and you're going to have at least two, the book, 1984, plus whatever source you found in research, and you'll use that hanging indent. So to get that hanging indent, I'm going to highlight my entries, and then I'll pull my slider so they just look like what you see up here, with the bottom one pulled over half an inch, and if you pull that one, the top always comes with it. And then the top one pulled back here to the margin. As for making the actual entries themselves, you're welcome to use a resource like the EasyBib add-on, which you can add to your add-ons there. If you don't already have it in there, refresh, so it'll pull up, and ideally it pulls up here on the side, although my computer doesn't want to cooperate with me right now. You can also simply make them by hand. It's not hard to do. So for MLA, the basic pattern is last name, first name, article title, name of the publication, the date, and these little bits are separated by commas, and then the URL. For the book, it'll be last name, first name, the title of the book here. And then since our book actually has two copyright dates in there, I was kind of debating what the format ought to look like, but I've got the original date here, the place of publication, the publishing company, and then the most recent copyright date there. Now, again, there are little variations, and frankly, as long as you've got the parts you need, it doesn't matter. You could also make it look like this. Now remember, APA always prioritizes that year a whole bunch, so you'd have last name, first initial, you'd have year, title, and then publisher. And then if this were a website, of course, you'd add that URL on there. So just the pattern will be the same. So right now I'm just going to do an entry for the source, the second source that I looked at. It's an N, so remember it's going on here alphabetically. And I'm going to type the last name, first name, whoops, if this were APA it'd be first initial. Then I'm going to do the title. APA is going to put the date right here. You can pick your style guide, doesn't matter to me which one you choose. And I never remember how to do certain formats, so I just check it out and find an example that shows what I need. And I need the volume, the issue, the year, pages, volume, issue, year, pages. And then I am going to put the URL here at the end since this is an online source. Now my notes from this source I'm going to tag with Novotny. My note from this source I'm going to tag with Grossman and Leroux. And of course anything from Orwell, well, I know who wrote that book. At this point, I can look over my outline, and before I get to the writing, I can make sure everything fits together and it's logical, see if there are any gaps, do any little tweaking, and then it should be very easy to take the outline and write, just like it's much easier to build a building if you've got a blueprint.